I am stuck on Band-Aid brand, 'cause Band-Aid stuck on me.
Pipi sumo mommy Band-Aid, Mimi tupu vanat. Cause they hold on tight and better than they cling and soapy touch.
Only Band-Aid brand adhesive bandages from Johnson & Johnson have our Super Stay-On adhesive. You'll notice the difference because it stays on you better than anything else you can buy.
I am stuck on Band-Aid, 'cause Band-Aid stuck on me.
Kids play a lot more than anyone.
Kids get hot more than anyone.
Hey, Kool-Aid!
Kool-Aid is for a kid's big thirst. Kids are having fun more than anyone.
Yeah, yeah.
Kids are on the run more than anyone. Kool-Aid is for a kid's big thirst.
Ah, love it.
Kool-Aid brand soft drink mix.
Kool-Aid is for a kid's big thirst.
Well, hello there.
Good to see you. I feel like it's been a while, Steve.
Yes. You know what? I was busy last week. I said you had like a little ladies' night, did you, huh?
We had a ladies' night. Anyone who missed that last week, it was great. It was actually my friend Nora and I. We had a great conversation all the way in Bali to Texas, which I think is so cool. So if you missed that, definitely watch and tune in. But yeah, we still miss you, Steve. It's nice to have you around.
Yeah, you know, I was ready for our 5 o'clock show, and I didn't get the memo that it was 8 o'clock because she's from Australia. So I had a concert to go to, but you held down the fort pretty well.
You know, I feel like I can do this. It's not the same. It definitely isn't the same. I like your presence, but I think I'm good.
I think you are good. I think a couple more years of doing this, you'll be perfect.
You got to keep teaching me. Keep giving me some little tidbits of information like you do, and then I'll be good in a few more years.
No, I know, but you're the best. You're the best. This is Kick on Healthy Relationships to the Curb. That's Stephanie McPhail. I'm Steve Vaccaro. We're here usually every Wednesday from 5 to 6 p.m. East Coast time, but you're in Texas. Our guest is in the Midwest, so our time thing is going a little wacky here today.
I love it though, because I love being able to interview people from all over the world. So it's such a great possibility to have perspectives from everybody everywhere.
That's right. So how you been?
Pretty good. Things are going really well. I'm really excited about Leah today because she's going to be talking about kids. And I got 2 young ones, and we are juggling right now, my husband and I working together and not having a nanny or childcare and homeschooling on top of everything else. And, you know, it's literally feel like I'm juggling cats.
Wow.
Well,
Yeah,
I need this today.
That's right. You know what? We all need like a little break. I need a little mental health break yesterday. So I took a crew of our Bat Boy cast and some of the folks behind the scenes, including Carmine. We went to Yankee Stadium. We went to see the Yankees and the Red Sox, and the Yankees won 2 games. That's a pretty nice picture here. It's almost like a painting.
That's awesome. Yeah, that looks beautiful.
Yeah, we had a great time. That's Carmine, our producer. And there we go at night. That's Ray Negron, the original Bat Boy there. That's Carmine right next to him, and our cast and crew. I'm in the back there, you know, picking up the rear. But we had a great time. Sometimes you just need a mental health break and a day just to get away from things. Do you find that true?
Yeah, it looks. I'm all about self-care. That's definitely something that's important, and it looks like it was a beautiful day for a ball game.
It was not just one ball game, 2 ball games, and we won. You know, so not too bad.
Nice.
How's the weather in Texas?
Hot. And actually, I was going to say, if suddenly you start hearing like weird sounds, I'm not trying to get out of it. There's a really bad storm coming and going. Okay. So there seems to be something brewing lately where it's been like, it rains differently here in Texas. When they say cats and dogs, I think it rains like that every single time it rains.
I know. Every time it rains cats and dogs, I'm always afraid to step in a poodle.
That was a good dad joke.
Yeah, see that? And that was perfect in 2nd grade. That was a perfect joke there.
Quite a comedian.
There we go. You know, but Leah talks about parenting and helping families bridge that together. And we have this little segment, the Family Feud kind of thing, and we kind of recap something. And this is a little bit about family. Let's check out what Steve Harvey has to do on the Family Feud regarding family.
Point values are triple. Top 4 answers on the board. Name a place where a teenager wants his parents to pretend they don't know him.
At a party.
At a party.
With friends.
With friends.
We're gonna play.
We're gonna play. Terry.
Yes, sir.
Name a place where a teenager wants his parents to pretend they don't know him.
At school.
At school. Terry. Name a place where a teenager wants his parents to pretend they don't know him.
On his date.
On his date. Kiara, name a place where a teenager wants his parents to pretend they don't know him.
When you are at a mall.
At a mall. Celeste, one answer left. If it's there, your family wins the game. If it's not there, you're still alive. Name a place where a teenager wants his parents to pretend they don't know him.
At his game.
At his game. Luis, one answer left. This time you have 2 strikes. The Frame family can steal, and they will win the game. Name a place. Name a place where a teenager wants his parents to pretend they don't know him.
On the playground.
On the playground for the win.
Okay.
All right, Frame, fellas.
All right, that works.
This is it. If it's there, your family steals, your family wins the game. If it's not there, the other family wins the game. This is it, fellas. Name a place where a teenager wants his parents to pretend they don't know him.
Steve, we're going to say it. Work.
This is at work. Number 3. Your ass on YouTube.
Wow. What do you think?
That was hard. I don't know. There was some really good answers. I think at work would have been a way better answer than at the movies or like on a date. I mean, was that one of them?
Yeah. That's one of them.
Why did they not pick that one?
Well, your kids are there, not there yet. So you're not in the teenage years. I've been through that. I went to a movie one time with my 2 daughters. I was very tired the night before because I worked a lot. I fell asleep. I might have snored just a little bit. I woke up and my 2 daughters were in a whole different row in a section of the movie theater. They did not want to be seen with me.
Yeah, who would want to be next to their snoring father to go see a movie?
All right. Well, this is not meant for you to side with them. This is just a factual tidbit I just share on the show. But anyway, that's a little thing. But we also have a Youth Heroes show tomorrow with Tyler Gianchetta and Rachel Barcelona. They're going to have Armani tomorrow, Armani Williams, who is on the spectrum, and he's a NASCAR race car driver. So you want to check that show out from 7 to 8 p.m. here on the network. And Rachel is an international autism advocate in her own right, and Tyler Gianchetta is an amazing musician. He plays a dulcimer. So tomorrow night from 7 to 8 p.m., you want to check that out. So we're so happy that show is on our network. And you know what? Dr. Phil also has a few words about parenting tips. I want to show this before Leah comes on because Leah has the final say in this whole thing. But let's see what Dr. Phil says.
Dr. Phil here, and you've got harmony. I'm not talking about harmony in music, but harmony in the household. Here are 3 of my top parenting tips. Number 1, you want to parent with purpose. Now, what I mean by that is your child needs to have goals that they're moving towards. You don't want to pick the goals for them because they won't own it. And you want the success to reflect their interest. So possible goals can include making friends, being real, being honest, being nice, or making some money, being entrepreneurial in their neighborhood. But be sure they have something to work towards and they have a timeline that goes with achieving it. Tip number 2 is you want to parent with clarity. Look, because you understand it doesn't mean that your child understands it. And the only way you're going to know that is if you ask them to tell you what they just heard. So give your instruction, give your information, and then say, okay, tell me what you heard so I can be sure that we understand each other. And make sure that you cover everything, including action steps. You don't want to just tell children, here's where I want to be. You want to define the steps that they need to take for success. And tip number 3 is parenting by negotiation. Children need to feel like they have some control over their environment. They can acknowledge you as an authority, they can acknowledge you as the one being in control, but they want to feel like they have some input. So sit down, talk about what they want, and then go through some give and take. They will learn what relationships are all about, and they'll feel like, hey, I've got some mastery over my world. And when it's their plan, they're a whole lot more likely to buy into it. Follow these 3 tips, and you've got harmony.
Then we need harmony, right? We need harmony.
Yeah, for sure. And I like that. I feel like my dad used that a few times trying to ask me if I was listening. Like, what did you hear just now? I heard la, 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 la.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, Mr. McPhail, we apologize for that.
Yes.
So I'll work with Stephanie a little bit.
Please do.
There we go. Well, let's bring our guest here tonight, Leah Miller. She's calling in from the Midwest, I believe, in the Chicago area. And Leah, let's join the show.
Many moms today are committed to making an impact in the world. These busy professionals, mompreneurs, or project volunteers are committed to their careers, missions, and success. But they also want to be great moms who create calm, peaceful, and nurtured homes. But the reality is that it isn't always as easy as it seems. The constant pressures and long to-do lists create tension and burnout. When moms come home after a long day, instead of warm hugs and family time, moms are greeted by cranky children, tantrums and meltdowns, and difficult bedtimes. This is where Leah Miller Parenting comes in. I help moms who are at the end of their ropes develop the skills to establish targeted structure and routines, learn effective communication skills, and understand their essential role as a parent, so that they have the skills to create the calm, warm, and connected homes that they so desire. What we want to be careful about is that we don't want to give our kids the feeling that they are the cause of our frustration, that we can't get anything done because of them. And so it's a difficult navigation, and it's very understandable that moms can get a little frustrated with that. And one of the ways that I have found to be most effective is to just surrender, to realize this is the situation. It won't be like this forever. And every minute we are letting our children know how we think about them, how we feel about them, who they are. And we want to be careful that we don't ever give them the feeling that they're in our way and that they are just a bother. And it can sometimes feel that way. And we have to kind of reset. It's more like a mindset that we have to realize that these are the precious years and they do not last forever. Busy moms need to shift their mindsets and become effective leaders in their homes. We have to look at ourselves in some way, not only the CEOs of our businesses and of our enterprises and of the things that we want to accomplish, but we also have to look at ourselves as the CEOs of our home. The messages that moms receive today are very confusing and debilitating. There are so many theories and ideas floating around that many moms experience unprecedented levels of guilt, which almost paralyze them when interacting with their children. He has a friend that feels guilty about putting her children to bed on time because she feels like she's being a bad mom. When parents make decisions that are based on what's good for the child, there's no reason in the world that they should ever have to feel guilty about their decision. We also don't want to go to bed when we are in the middle of something, but we do because we won't be able to function the next day. When we are firm in our decisions that we make for the good of our children, they eventually will understand that it's for their good and not because their parents are mean. Hi, my name is Leah Miller, and I'm a learning and behavioral specialist and a master's in education, and I've been working with children and parents for over 20 years. I'm also the mom of a large family, and I've really seen it all. Leah Miller Parenting was created to allow busy moms to focus on the things that matter, give them confidence, and help them to become fulfilled, effective leaders in their homes.
And we welcome Leah Miller to the show. Leah, awesome work that you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. That video really captures what a lot of moms around the world, around the country go through. I'm sure Stephanie could definitely relate to that. So wonderful work.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here, and thank you so much for inviting me on the show.
I'm pretty excited because I feel like, I mean, there's so many things that I think are going to be really helpful for a lot of parents that are juggling so much. And especially, you know, what I find a lot of women, they're not sure of themselves, which makes it really hard for them to be sure and like have sure footing when it comes to their parenting, because they're trying so hard to please. When it comes to parenting, as I've found so far, it's not really about pleasing all the time. Sometimes there's some very unhappy campers like today during our online learning where my son said he was bored and didn't want to do anything. He wanted to watch television. And I said, you still have to do some more work. So we're getting that firsthand right now.
Yes, I think that's really important. I think that so many moms are in your position today where they are just so busy and they're juggling a million things. And many moms are working, creating businesses, creating all types of enterprises, and yet they still have their children. And like you, Stephanie, they are experiencing a lot of difficulty with their children. I think a lot of that comes from parents today want to move away from the idea of my way or the highway parenting. And that's understandable. But as you said, at the same time, we have to have expectations for our children so that they know what we want. They know how to do things in the right way and to grow in a positive way and take responsibility. So I think it is a juggle, both in the fact that we're so busy and both in the fact of knowing what is the right way to parent. How can we parent so that we don't push our children away, but at the same time we give them what they need?
Yeah, Steve, and not to interrupt Steve, but I think like you have kids that are older. I have young kids, and I think that so many of us, depending on our own upbringing, might decide to try to do things differently for our own children. There might be some good things that we learned. There might be some not so good things that we learned, but we try to do differently. I feel like most parents try to do differently than whatever they had. But I think that a big issue is there's some things that have to be done as parents. And when there's no handbook necessarily. Like, yes, people have written books. Yes, there's all of that. But when it comes to your individual child, we know that each child needs something a little bit different than the other one. But I think we also just don't know. I mean, there are times where it's like, you kind of question yourself, is this what I'm supposed to be doing? Was there a better answer than whatever I gave? And I think what for a lot of people is it kind of makes them frozen. So They don't know what to do and then they don't do anything.
Yes, I agree with that 100%. I think that a lot of parents don't know what to do. And there are so many theories out there, and a lot of them are conflicting. So I think that one of the things that I talk about is intentional parenting. I don't think it's so much that we have to do things right every minute. Well, we're never going to do things right all the time. But if we are intentional and we make the time to connect with our children, we make family time, we plan, we look at what might go wrong, and then we try to mitigate that, I think that that goes a long way to helping us parent in the right way. I think our children understand and they get the feeling of where we're at. Now, when a parent is so frustrated and they don't know what to do, that's when the problems come in. And again, I think that comes into if we set the right intentions and we plan ahead, we think about when do our children get unreasonable? And we have to think about what's going on physically. Are we coming home to tantrums? Are our kids hungry? Are they tired? Are we not putting them to bed on time? Again, it's different with older children, but certainly when our children are younger, we do have to set certain expectations. And sometimes it's good to sit down with a spouse or even a friend and just think about, well, what are the kind of things that are going wrong? Because sometimes we feel that there's a lot more going wrong than there really is. And sometimes if we look at the situation, do our children just have too many activities and we're rushing them around after school and they just need some downtime? Do we have we considered what their day is like? Are they anxious about something? Do they have homework that they can't manage? I think it's really important to just have conversations with our kids and just see, even if if we feel like they might not be opening up to us, we can say, how's school going? How are your friends? Are you feeling good in school? Are the other kids nice to you? How do you feel about your academics? Do you feel like you're doing well? Are you anxious because you didn't do well in math last year? Well, it's going to be different this year because we're going to have a tutor. So sometimes it's just that conversation. And even if our kids aren't opening up to us, we can make suggestions and eventually we'll hit on that thing that might be causing them some anxiety and giving them what they need and helping to reassure. I think that it's important to realize that we are models for our children. And if we are showing them that there's a way to solve problems, we don't have to live with the weight of our problems, and we talk about those things and we show them that we understand and that we can be a sounding board, I think that goes a long way to helping us parent. And again, Stephanie, I'm not sure, but I imagine you're talking about when our kids are melting down or when our kids are having emotional outbursts. And I think it's important to realize that we don't want to stop our kids from feeling what they're feeling. In other words, a child can feel whatever they want. It doesn't mean we have to get pulled into that. But at the same time, we don't want to tell a child, stop that, don't cry, we have to let them feel their feelings. But at a calmer time, we can go in and we can talk to them and say, tell me what was going on when you had that, when you were feeling so bad. And probably if you talk to them at a time when they're calm and when they're more open, they might be able to tell you, and then you can brainstorm together to see, well, how can we prevent that from happening again?
Yeah, that's great advice. This is Cook on Healthy Relationships to the Curb. That's Stephanie McPhail. I'm Steve Vaccaro. And our parenting expert tonight is Leah Miller, calling in from Chicago. Now, Leah, this pandemic has really been hit everybody hard worldwide, but in the country. How has your practice, your work been with families that have been afflicted with this pandemic, but also the kids that have been isolated from school and really not getting the care or the education that they were used to? How do you work with the families during this pandemic?
So I think that you hit on a really important point, is that families now are really having a hard time. We have parents that have difficulty meeting all the needs of their kids because of the pandemic. And now I hear about a whole group of moms that are thinking about homeschooling because they're feeling that their kids aren't able if there's going to be Zoom again and masks again, they feel like their kids are not going to thrive in that environment. So I think it's really thrown parents into very difficult positions. And educationally, obviously, they've missed a lot. But I think that we have to realize that we hope that there's going to be an end to this, and that yes, it's difficult now and we have to push through. And like, people have gone through situations like this throughout history. There's been wars, there's been all kinds of things. And one of the things that we want to help our kids with is, how do we deal with these challenges? How do we deal with challenges in life? And I think if our children see that we understand, we understand it's really hard to learn on Zoom. How can I help you? What can I do for you to make it easier for you? I know it's not easy, but what can I do for you? And then again, just sit down and brainstorm together. And if they're having difficulty with Zoom, or if they're having difficulty in whatever area of the pandemic, again, we have to sit down and talk to them and find out what's going on, and then really listen to what's going on, because sometimes children have difficulty actually expressing what's going on, but we sometimes have to listen behind the words. And then we have to try to make the best of it. We want to show them that we're here for you and we can get through this together. We're a family, we are strong, we have the capabilities. And if we give them that message, we show them that, yes, it would be better if it was the old way, but it's not. How can we make it the best? How can we make the best of the situation that we are in?
Yeah, we're getting some of these comments coming in, but also, Leah, when families are challenged in two families, households, as a psychologist, I work with a lot of kids, that at-risk kids, whatever that means, that term. But when I always do a survey with the classes, they always say they rarely eat dinner together, maybe once or twice a year, which I'm shocked by, maybe Thanksgiving or different things. And this life is fast paced, but correct me if I'm wrong, the cognitive ability improves if families are together having meals, but open communication during that time is critical for a family, correct?
I'm so glad that you brought that up, because I just read a study about 5,000 teens, and they found that the teens that ate dinner with their families every night were emotionally stronger and had better mental health. And so that leaves some families in a quandary. What do I do if my husband can't be home when it's dinner time? Or if we can't sit down as a family together? So I tell parents that we have to create some type of ritual together. It doesn't necessarily have to be dinner. It doesn't have to necessarily be every day, but at least once a week, we should be doing something together as a family. We should be sitting down, if it's just reading together, if it's just playing a game together, if it's, obviously it's great to have a meal together. That's how people have connected throughout history. But again, if you can't do that, if that's not possible, make sure to build that into your family structure. That's what I was talking about, intentional planning. We as parents have to find a way, just like you put on your schedule, do the laundry, go to the dry cleaner. You have to put into your schedule, you have to make that time, because we know from these studies that building that time into the family kind of gives our family immunity from a lot of difficult situations. So I'm glad you brought that up, because I really think it's so important to build these type of routines and rituals into our family through intentional planning.
And Stephanie, your family is really tight. You do a lot of things as a family, and I think that message needs to get out in so many ways. Would you agree with what Leah had just mentioned?
I mean, again, I have young kids, but I completely agree. I think that, I grew up where we ate dinner together every single night. There was always that time for conversation. My dad would ask us questions, not just how was school today, but ask us kind of some probing questions to have some real conversation. We would be able to joke and have fun. It was probably my favorite part of my day was being able to sit down with our family and being able to eat together. So I think that those are some good memories that you bring everywhere. And so that's something that for my husband and I, we're really, it's really important for us to schedule our day based on us being able to eat together. And then on the weekends, find time to have fun. My son looks forward to Saturdays so much. He yells out Friday because it's Friday. He knows the whole weekend we're going to be hanging out. So, we try to keep business during business hours and then, the weekend for family time.
Yes, so important. In fact, I just remembered a story that I once heard, a beautiful story about a father who was very busy. He was a community person, and he was very pulled in many, many directions, always busy in his community. And he didn't want his son to suffer. And what he used to do is every morning before he left, for 20 minutes, he would make his son some hot chocolate, and then they would sit down at the table. And while he was eating breakfast, he would spend time with his son. And later, that his son said that as he looked back on his childhood, those were the memories that he had of spending that time with his father. It was only 20 minutes, but it made such an impact on his life. And it gave him that stability that he had for the rest of his life.
Yeah, that is so vital. I on the show I share that I grew up in different foster homes, and the difficult time for me was that when the families in those foster homes got together for meals and things like that, I was like so not wanting to be at that table. But then as time went on, you see what normalizing, you see what comfort there is from there. And like Stephanie mentioned, it wasn't just about her father asking about her grades and other things, but life things. And that's what you really learn about when you plan. When your child says, I'm ready for the weekend on a Friday, ready to go, it doesn't get better than that, because now that you're ready for that. And I think during this pandemic, our kids are so isolated from everything. I think our parents need to step up even more to teach them, because if they don't, we're just left with what they watch on TV or different things. And what's on TV now is not the greatest.
Right. You have to create the environment that you want your kids to live in.
Yeah.
Right.
I agree because, and that's what it is too. I mean, today we went to the park and there were some other kids there that were also being homeschooled, and they were kindergartners. And so it was just a great opportunity for me to speak to another mom it was only 5 minutes because I had to come back and do work, but it was great to just talk to another mom who was doing the same thing with twins. And, be able to have the kids kind of see other kids and interact, kind of distance. And my son has become very good at asking, questions about if they're socially distancing. And at 5, they're used to asking these questions, which to me is just amazing.
Yeah.
But, it's a whole new world. And, and again, like talking about the pandemic, my 5-year-old talks about what it was like before all of this, before we had to worry about people having germs and before we had to worry about any of this. And at 5, that's a lot to think about. And sometimes he gets frustrated. So it's important to be able to open up that conversation and let him know, like, I get it. I'm frustrated too. Like we talk about how much we both like to travel, because that was something we used to do together a lot, and how we haven't been doing that. So, to really empathize, and, this is hard for all of us.
Yes, absolutely.
That's right. This is Kick on Healthy Relationships to the Curb. That's Stephanie McPhail. I'm Steve Vaccaro. That's our parenting expert guest from Chicago, Leah Miller, and she's talking about the importance of families coming together, but also women that are working full-time from home. Leah, how do you set up boundaries? How does a mom set up boundaries to do all the stuff at home, but also to be, a top-notch employee or entrepreneur working from home?
So I think that's a very difficult thing to do. We try our best, and I think that it's important to try and think through your day and what are the periods where you feel like you have the most time. In other words, maybe you have to get up a little bit before the kids and work for an hour, or maybe when the kids are busy with something. In other words, you can make an activity. Again, it depends on what age, but if the kids are busy in their school day and they're on Zoom, so that's a good time for you to get to work. If they don't have Zoom and you're making their whole schedule, so then you can talk to them and you can say, I need an hour to work, And while I'm working, I want you to play this game or do this activity. And when we're finished, when after that hour, I'm going to spend a few minutes with you. So they have something to look forward to. They're able to, they know that at a certain point, they're going to get mommy back or daddy back. And so you can kind of structure their day knowing they know exactly what's coming and you know exactly what's coming. And they're more able to wait without interfering when they know that at the end of this time, you're going to be with them 100%.
I love that, because the scheduling to me, I think, is so important. You know, like, and even so, I mean, luckily it's my husband and I, so we can flop back and forth between the two of us with the kids. So like in the morning tends to be more me taking them out to the park and doing things like that. And then we'll more flip flop. And then when my daughter takes a nap, my son can kind of entertain himself for a little bit, or I'll give him some classwork to do. And so it's less hands-on, and then we can get a little bit more work done. But having that schedule is key for everybody. That way we know like what the expectations are. Well, from this time, this is what we're doing. And even my 2-year-old gets on board with that. Like she's understanding more and more what the schedule is.
Yes.
Right. When my children were younger, my wife worked overnights and I worked during the day, which was great because we were able to kind of flip-flop what you're saying, you know, immediately do that and transition that. But the flaw that we had that was a challenge is that we didn't create that family time sometimes on the weekends. And I think that could be a big void if you omit that on a regular basis. Do you find that, Leah, a situation where families are working like Stephanie is saying, but then they don't spend that special quality time with each other?
Well, that's what I talk about a lot. I think that once parents understand how important it is, I think they try to make the time. Most parents want to do the right thing, and they it's just that it's the overwhelm. So again, it's also mindset. It's also realizing, you know, you have to go into it thinking, you know what, everything's going to work out in the end. It might not get done exactly right now, but it will get done. And just, I think that once parents realize that and they get on board 100%.
What do you think? Because I'm thinking right now of so many parents that I know that there's this idea of being the perfect parent, you know, or the perfect mom. So like they need to make sure the house is totally clean and all of their, you know, job is done and the kids have like the perfect lunches and all these things. What would you say to parents who are kind of doing that to themselves, putting that idea of perfection and parenting, and I'm not going to be seen as good enough if I'm not that perfect parent?
That's a great question. I think that we have to move away from feeling like we have to be perfect. That is not going to help anybody. We're always going to feel like we're not measuring up. We just have to say, I'm doing the best I can with the tools that I have and the time frame that I have. And I just want to, most of all, I'm showing my child that I'm there for them, that I love them, that I have expectations for them. And that's really what we have to do. Guilt does not help anybody. If we're feeling that we always have to be perfect and we're not measuring up, that's not good for our children to see. We want our children to see us have a healthy relationship, and that we obviously we have expectations for ourselves, but our expectations are not unrealistic. And when we show our children that, then they also develop a realistic way to look at themselves, and they also will not over expect from themselves. So I think it's important to just step back a little bit, especially during the pandemic. We've really been through the ringer. It's been hard for parents. It's really been tough, and we just have to give ourselves a pat on the back that we made it this far, and just do our best to, like I said, show our kids that we love them, that we're doing the best that we can, and create those family times.
Yeah. You know, I find myself asking the same question sometimes on our show because such amazing people, amazing women that are doing great things. So Leah, what's the most rewarding aspect of what you do and the most challenging? Because I'm sure you've experienced both over and over again.
I think that when parents have been experiencing a really difficult situation and they don't really know how to frame it, and they just have a supportive ear, and we can kind of reframe that situation to show them it's not as bad as you think, and we can do things to help it out. I think that's when parents drop those, like you said, Stephanie, when they drop those unrealistic expectations of themselves, and they have some tools to get their kids to bed on time, or to be able to work with, structure their time and structure their families and be able to work. I think that it relieves so much stress from families, and that means healthier moms and healthier kids and healthier families. So that's very rewarding. And if a family isn't ready yet, sometimes a family has to get into the mindset. If it's difficult for them, sometimes suggestions need to sit for a while. So I don't feel bad if a family is having difficulty. Sometimes when we make suggestions, it's a lot. It's a lot to change our mindset. It's a lot to change the way we've been doing things. And I have faith that when they're ready, that they will be able to take some of the things that it's not what I said, it's just common sense, and be able to implement that into the families.
What would you say to parents who, again, a lot of parents are just trying to figure it out on their own. They don't really have the knowledge or the tools that from what they learned growing up, and they're doing the best they can. What would you say to those parents that are maybe trying too much, maybe too hard to be their child's best friend, or they're not really giving consequences for behavior? What would you say to those parents?
So again, it's a sensitive situation. You have to, if a parent wants some ideas and some ways to change, then education is so important. It's really about educating parents about things that work, just things that work, things that we know that children need a lot of structure. We know that we, like you said, we know that children need clear expectations. That's the way they function the best. But like I said, sometimes it's hard for parents, but if they really want to, then there's so much education out there. There's so many ways that they can get the education that they need, and trial and error. It doesn't have to be perfect, but as long as we're helping parents move in the right direction.
Because I'm thinking, I work with a lot of people that have suffered narcissistic abuse and a lot of people that are codependent. And I've read some studies, and again, both of you correct me if I'm wrong or if you've heard something different, but I've heard some studies talk about how if you don't really give kids really clear expectations, consequences for bad behavior, you can't let them get whatever they want. There has to be no's to things. If you don't do that, then you're kind of setting them up for possible narcissistic issues.
Yes.
Because they're not used to being told no. Like, how dare you tell me no? My mom never told me no. Nobody ever told me no. I do whatever I want. So, those long-term consequences of not saying no, for those parents who are afraid and they want to be best friends, think about those long-term consequences of that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's so important what you just said. I think that that's when we as parents, what do we really want to show them? We want to show them how to succeed in life. And we have to think about that, because if, like you said, if children don't have consequences, and I'm not talking about harsh punishments, I'm just talking about, you don't put your laundry in the hamper, it doesn't get washed. You don't do your homework, you're gonna fail. If we allow our children to experience certain consequences, I think that a lot of parents want to rush in. They don't want their children to experience any pain or any hurt, and that's understandable. We don't like to see our children experience difficult situations, but we need to know that those are the situations that actually prepare us for life. What happens if you don't come to work on time? What happens if you don't do your job the way it's supposed to be? If they haven't experienced the consequences when they're young, they won't know how to experience. They won't know how to just get through life in in a positive way. So I think it's really important for parents to understand that the consequences that they're setting, it's not being mean. It's actually being kind, because we're showing kids that this is life, and we want to teach our kids responsibility. We want to teach our kids that they have to perform. And when we don't do that, we're really sending the wrong message. And I see this so many, as an educator, I see this so many times that parents want to rush in and say to the teacher, why didn't my child get an A? Why didn't my child get this? What? And sometimes we have to just step back, and we have to allow our children to experience life. And without us saying anything, that's the best lesson of all. We just stand back, and again, we can go after the situation. We can be a sounding board for them and say, oh, if they're really upset about a grade, and we could just say, well, what happened? Why do you think you got that grade? And just kind of reprocess that. But 100%, children need to experience the consequences of their action, just like adults always experience the consequences of the action. And parents think, he's only a child. But very soon that child becomes a teenager, and very soon that teenager becomes an adult. And if we don't start young, then we have much bigger problems later on.
Right. Well, those are absolute teaching moments. I mean, that we have to, be able to teach our children consequences and rewards. If it's swayed on one side, then it's not a learning, it's not a teaching moment, because there is a fine line between entitlement and empowerment, even as kids. So growing up, if we don't have that balance or that fine line, they're going to learn more how to be entitled to certain things than empowered. And it's almost like a sports analogy. Like if you win all the time, it's hard to teach somebody, right? It's hard to teach youngsters. Yes. But if you lose, well, now, okay, we're going to take a step back. This is what happened. Let's break it down and see what led to that loss, or what led to that consequence of what you did. So I think you're absolutely right, Leah, and also Stephanie, because they're all teaching moments. And if we fail to do that, we're going to see the consequences as those kids get older.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah, I'm thinking, I'm blank on his name, and I don't know why, because he's a really famous person, but the brain, mom brain is there. But I was watching an interview, and he was talking about his children, and he was saying that like his children, he was sitting at the pool, and his children and some of the relatives' kids, all the kids were playing together, and they come running over, one of them's crying, and he says, well, what's wrong? What happened? And they said, well, this person did this and this person did that. And he said, okay, go back and figure it out. And the kids went back and they talked about it some more, and then they came back, and he said, go back and figure it out. And the kids went back and they talked about it. They came back, and he said, well, go back and figure it out. If I need to step in, then there's going to be very different consequences. So they went off, they figured it out, and they didn't come back. Yeah. And someone came up to him and said, well, why didn't you just give them the answer? And he said, well, because we've always given them the answer. They're never going to learn how to work things through if we constantly jump in the second anything happens. They figured it out. They just needed to be reminded that they had the power to figure it out. And if it was something big, they would have come back and they would have let us know, but it was something silly over like a pool noodle or something, So I love that example, because I think it's just, and I do that. I consciously do that with my children, because I know they need to learn those skills in order to grow up and have them.
Right.
That's amazing, Stephanie, because you're talking about being conscious, and that is so important. And you're being a great model by being a conscious parent.
Right. Because about a year and a half ago, I had a problem. I came up to Stephanie with it. I asked her, Stephanie, what's the answer to this? She's never told me. She said, Steve, figure it out. I'm still trying, Steph.
Oh, it sounds like you're still hurt from whatever it is, Steve.
Well, this is Kick on Healthy Relationships to the Curb. That's Stephanie McPhail. That's our great parenting expert from Chicago, Leah Miller. And Leah, what advice would you give to parents these days? We're coming down to a close in the next few minutes, but what tips or what advice would you give now, kind of coming out of the pandemic, but the world is changing. It's never going to be the same. 9/11 is 20 years already, and we have to continue to teach our children the world changed since 9/11 20 years ago, and the world is going to change even more, after this pandemic is said and done, because the real consequences, the real look at things is going to happen 5-10 years from now from what happened now. So what advice would you give parents at this moment?
I guess I would tell them that just be strong for your kids. Just help them process what's going on. Continue to talk to them, continue to open the conversation, continue to be good models. It's a tough world. We don't know what's coming. We don't know what's going to be in the future. And if we can show our kids that we have a family, and our family is something that we have to treasure, and when we have a strong family, we can face anything. We are a strong unit together, and we can together, if there's a challenge, we'll work on it together and we'll get through that challenge. So I think that that's really just important for parents to realize how much they have as a family, how the family unit is one of the most important things that a child can gain strength from. And even if it's just one mom and one child, or one dad and one child, together two are stronger than one. And to just constantly give your child the message that I'm here for you. We're going to get through this. You have the capability. You have the strength inside you. I believe in that strength. We have to believe in our children. We have to show them that we believe in them, and just help them and know that, they always can fall back on us. And again, help them to get through life and show them that they have the capabilities, like Stephanie said, and that we do have to give them consequences sometimes. But the point is that the family unit can survive it all.
I love it.
That's great. And I run parenting groups each week, and I think there are times where I can certainly share my thoughts and advice and my learnings and education to the parents. But what's more effective is when the parents start to talk with one another and they share different experiences, that connection with each other. Now, I know, Stephanie, you're always bridging that gap. Leah, is that important for you too, to have other parents support one another?
Oh, as I can only say from my own experience, when I had young children, I really needed a support, and I read every book. It wasn't enough. I finally found a parenting class with like-minded mothers, and having that support and learning together. And we had a wonderful leader, but like you said, talking to other mothers, realizing that other mothers are experiencing exactly what you're experiencing, and that you're okay. Everything is fine. Your kids are fine. You're fine. And just having that support and being together, that's tremendously powerful.
Thank you.
Wow, thanks. Well, before you go, Leah, I just got to ask one question. So, Stephanie, you're in Texas. Leah, you're in Chicago. I'm in New York. So who has the best pizza? I mean, I don't know.
Not Texas.
I wouldn't think so. So, Leah, how's the pizza in Chicago?
Wins. I think New York wins.
I had some good pizza in Chicago. Was it Geno's East, I think is where it was. Geno's East too. When I went into Chicago, oh my gosh, that pizza was, it was like all cheese and like a cornmeal bottom. Oh my gosh, it was so good. People shipped it out because it was so good.
Wow. Well, anyway, Leah, how can people contact you or get a hold of you if they want more advice or tips or parenting skills from you?
Okay, so on Facebook, I'm at Leah Miller Coaching, and my website is leahmillerparenting.com. And on Facebook, if you could private message me, I have classes going. I have individual counseling. So I'd be happy to speak to anyone, or to and my my Facebook group is Power Parenting Moms, for those moms that are so busy and working so hard and trying to raise a family at the same time. So that is a group where I go live once a week, and you're together with a bunch of like-minded moms. So that's also a great place to connect. And that's facebook.com/groups/Power Parenting Moms.
Well, that's great. What's cool about this show, it gets rebroadcasted next week on Optimum Cablevision. You can check your local listings for when this interview is going to be viewed again. But Leah, thank you so very much. I hope that you come on back one day and share a little bit what's going on during this year, and hopefully all is well as we move forward.
I would love to. I would love to. Thank you.
Thank you, Leah.
And
have a
good luck
great
to all
day.
the moms out there.
Yes, thank you so much.
Leah Miller, unbelievable, Stephanie. I mean, another factor is so important for us to discuss is parents and the parenting skills, and especially with school coming back and mask and no mask, at home or at school. Parents are so confused. We have to get back to the core of what a parent should be doing. I think Leah portrays that each and every way.
Yeah, and I really, and again, my background working with women who have been in toxic relationships. I mean, I just had a phone call yesterday where the mom was telling me that she gave her all to her children and they've succeeded. And she's so they're now gone and she has nothing. Like she's having a hard time even getting out of bed. She doesn't know what to do for herself. And I think that she's not alone. I think that there is a lot of parents, because they want to do better than what they had growing up, they overgive so much. And then they're left feeling completely isolated and alone, and they don't know how to take care of themselves. They don't know how to have self-care. And so we have to learn how to have balance when it comes to all of those things. And again, we don't have to be perfect parents. If we can have a conversation with our kids and listen to what they have to say, I think we're going to be giving them a way bigger service than just kind of lecturing them or telling them what to do or, being absentee. Even if it's just a few minutes every day, listening, asking questions, I think kids will really respond well to that.
Wow. And before we close, Stephanie, we haven't talked about your book today. So our new viewers out there, share a little bit about your book. I got a truckload of books here in my living room that are your books. So I need to get rid of these things. How can people get your book and what is it all about?
Well, you can contact Steve because he can give you one of my books because I shipped it to him. I was going to go do a book signing in New York and I had to cancel plans. But you can actually buy my book directly from Amazon, Being Loved Shouldn't Hurt, Codependency Healing and Creating Healthy Relationships. And there's the workbook that goes along with it. You can also follow me on Facebook, Being Loved Shouldn't Hurt, Codependency Healing, Healthy Relationships, if you're looking for extra support. And, again, the big thing is always knowing that you're not alone. And actually saying that next week, Heather Kate, who actually is in kind of a similar niche as to what I am, is going to be coming on to talk about what she does with her clients. So, tune in for that, for those unhealthy relationship conversations when it comes to romantic relationships. Come in and have a listen to Heather. She's going to be a really great resource for those of you who are interested.
So is this a ladies' night, or can I drop by next week?
You're allowed, Steve. We like you to be around. We like there to be that male-female perspective. We need your 2 cents.
That's right. Well, this is another great show. I look forward to every Wednesday. Stephanie, you're the best. I want to thank you so very much, and all our viewers and listeners out there that tune us in on every Wednesday from 5 to 6 p.m. It's Kick on Healthy Relationships with a Curb, and another week in the books. So have a great couple of days, and we will see each other again next week.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.